Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that I'm doing this right. I'm still a bit of a novice over here. I am Boomy. It is Soya and Baila's world tonight. You have to remember, Baila, Soya, and I are radio used to, radio adjusted. So we've been doing it that way. And I understand you're trying to train us since you have both radio and podcast experience for a long, long time. So we're going to try to do our best at adjusting. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me welcome your hostesses. First, Baila, say it, hello.
Hi, how are you? How is everybody doing now?
Okay.
Everyone's doing great. I'm doing great. We have a very special, we're honored to have a very special guest tonight, and we only have them for a very short period of time. I'm guessing they're going to be meeting tonight with possibly with Trump or someone very, very important.
Well, he has actually Trump's endorsement. As a matter of fact, he got endorsed recently by Dov Hikind, Ambassador David Friedman, a whole host of across the board endorsements. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Bryan Leib. Bryan is the Republican candidate for Florida's 25th Congressional District. He is currently the CEO of Henry Public Relations, and he is the former national director of Americans Against Anti-Semitism. Welcome, Bryan. It's an honor to have you.
Always an honor to be with you, Boomy and Soya, and our new friends here. I will say I'm not officially endorsed by President Trump yet. God willing, that might happen sooner than later. But we do have a lot of really great endorsements. 5 sitting members of Congress, former senior Trump officials, and then a lot of local leaders here in Florida. So yeah, it's listen, we're in a race right now, fighting for the future of America. Fighting for values that we all love and cherish so much. And as a 38-year-old guy, I just couldn't sit on the sidelines any longer and watch the radical left really try and destroy this country. And I said, I've got to get into the fight, and there's no other way to get into the fight than being in the People's House in Washington, D.C.
Right, and you are in the good fight. Speaking of which, now that you opened up the subject, I think there's a lot of things going on in the world, but since we're not on radio and we have to, Baila keeps telling me, Boomy, focus on a single subject podcast.
A podcast is different than radio.
Right. So what we have to do tonight, Bryan, what we want to do is talk about the new presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, which of course is Kamala Harris.
Sure.
Now, I am not a political pundit, nor am I a public official myself. But I have my deep reservations about everything related to Kamala Harris. I think that she was picked just because she had access to the money that they were able to gather together while she is vice president with President Biden. And so I don't think anybody else has that kind of access and can get that. Tell us about Kamala Harris, Bryan. I mean, have the Democrats produced a decent candidate for president? Is that somebody we could look to?
I don't think they have. I mean, Vice President Harris has been a very quiet vice president by all accounts. She was nicknamed or given the title of being the border czar. And unfortunately really hasn't done too much to stop the illegal immigration that we have happening in our country. Just 2 days ago, our brave men and women in Customs and Border Patrol arrested 3 Palestinian terrorists that were trying to illegally enter our country. So, yeah, I think VP Harris is in a lot of ways just kind of a continuation of the Biden presidency, and even more so a continuation of the 8 years of the Obama presidency. It's all the same people, it's all the same policies, the same procedures. I don't think much has really changed. And honestly, when you kind of look at the lay of the land from a political perspective right now, I didn't think that you were going to see anyone major from the Democratic side, or anyone that has a future in the party, because as of right now, President Trump is ahead in either 5 or 6 battleground states. And if you're an aspiring Democrat, if you're a governor, let's say of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, or the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, if you're someone like this that potentially has a future on a national stage in the Democratic Party, you're not going to want to jump into a race for president 3 to 4 months in, start from nothing. And have to go against President Trump, whose popularity is continuing to rise right now. So, listen, I don't personally think anyone has anything to be worried about with Kamala Harris. She doesn't really have much of a record, but I will tell you, speaking specifically, to the Jewish audience in New York and Florida and around the country, I mean, Kamala Harris is no friend of the Jewish community. She's no friend of the state of Israel. Her daughter was raising money for the Palestinians.
$10
Her
million.
daughter,
Yeah.
yeah,
Stepdaughter.
exactly.
No, it does, because she is actually the daughter of a Jewish husband.
Right. Speaking of popularity, Brian, according to a recent Newsweek article, Kamala Harris's popularity reaches record high. Why do you think that is? Though I will say not in Texas, and then again, neither was Joe Biden popular there either. But the fact is that her popularity, Kamala Harris's popularity, is reaching a record high.
I mean, listen, it all depends on, who's saying, Baila, that, she's reaching a record high. I can tell you, as someone that's running for office down here in Florida, I've yet to meet anyone that's really excited about Kamala Harris. I don't really think that she has the popularity that people think she does. And honestly, she's not very relatable. I mean, that's the one thing with President Trump. When you look at why he's always been, in my opinion, so successful is, he can walk into a diner in Indiana where he doesn't know a single soul and speak to 100 people, and everyone leaves the room thinking that they just had an intimate conversation with Trump. Versus, someone like, Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, they're not really good in the retail politics game, the shaking hands, the kissing the babies, pressing the flesh. So yeah, I'm not really too concerned, to be honest, with her. And again, I mean, she doesn't really have a very good record when it comes to Israel, and her husband, who Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman, who is Jewish. I mean, he's leading an initiative to combat Islamophobia. Last time I checked, anti-Semitism is at record highs in this country right now. Maybe instead of him focusing on Islamophobia, he should focus on taking care of his own people, us, the Jewish people.
Right.
Absolutely right, Brian. So what I'm hearing from you, let me get this, is that domestically, Kamala Harris is a continuation of the disastrous Biden years, where we have suffered incredible inflation, unemployment, open borders, and I don't care what the mainstream media tells us and what Biden keeps telling us, because I feel when I go into the grocery store and I have to pay 5 times what I did 4 years ago for the same item, and when I got to go for gas and it costs me, instead of $2 a gallon, $3.50 a gallon. And when I see what's happening as a result of the illegal aliens and the fact that we can't take over, I look around me domestically and I see the reality of what's happening to this country. And so any spin that the mainstream media, the Clinton News Network, CNN, or MSNBC tries to put on it doesn't fool me. But it seems as though they're going to put a massive spin on everything now. Does that not pose a threat? It seems to me there are a lot of Americans out there, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but in the African-American community and others, there are, of course, some smart ones that vote for what's good for America, but there are those out there that simply get taken in by the fact that she is, quote unquote, a woman of color, and they will vote based on what the outward appearances are as opposed to substance.
Well, that's something that America wants. America's wanted a woman president for a while, especially the left has wanted, and her color will make a big difference too. But I also have a concern, because in her presidential bid, Kamala Harris has won the backing of major Jewish interest groups, including Democratic Majority for Israel, J Street, and the Jewish Democratic Council of America. She also has connections to AIPAC, American Israel Public Affairs Committee. So what do you make of all that?
Well, listen, I think the fact that she's endorsed by J Street should
Okay,
tell a
J
lot
Street,
of
you're
us,
right. You're right. That's not a
right?
good
I mean,
example, but
no.
all the other organizations that I mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, those other organizations you mentioned, to be honest with you, they're not really large and substantial organizations. I mean, they have a niche, the way J Street has a niche in terms of who their base is. But I think, listen, I think when it comes to November, something that we're going to see from a lot of Jews in America, not just Republicans, but Democrats and independents as well, is that Israel is going to be, if not the only issue, but a very top issue on how a lot of Jews in America are voting.
Sure.
Unfortunately, what happened on October 7th, absolute massacre. None of us ever would have wanted that to happen. It was such a high price for all of us as Jews to pay. But in a lot of ways, I think it really did kind of open a lot of people's eyes, and they really, have started to see the Democratic Party for what they are. And
Right.
and by the way, listen, there's some great Democrats out there. I mean, people I can think of like Josh Gottheimer in New Jersey. Or Jared Moskowitz down here in Florida. Those are two Jewish Democrats, very pro-Israel, very moderate, great guys. But unfortunately, that's kind of not the Democratic Party of today. And I think that the radical left has really kind of created this anti-Israel sentiment. I mean, listen, guys, the fact that Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House, someone who allegedly is as pro-Israel as it gets, put out a tweet after Benjamin Netanyahu's joint address last week, pretty much saying, go home, don't ever come back.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the worst speech you ever gave. I mean, that kind of tells you like where the Democratic Party is going right now, which just brings me back to my point in that I think a lot of Jewish Americans in November are going to be voting and what's best for Israel, what's best for us as Jews in America. And you don't have to love the Republican Party to look at them and see that Republicans are standing tall and strong with the state of Israel every step
Yes.
of the way. And final point on that, what's very interesting to me is that there's only 2 Jewish House Republicans. There's over 50 Jewish House Democrats serving in the U.S. House, but only 2 Jewish House Republicans. But yet the Republican Party is in lockstep with the state of Israel. They're in lockstep with the Jewish community and fighting back against the anti-Semitism on our college campuses. And I just think it's really woken a lot of people up. So the Democrats can put up Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Michelle Obama, whoever they want.
Right.
I don't think it really matters. And it doesn't matter not just to Jews, but I think to all of us. We're all boomy. To your point, everything's more expensive. Eggs are more expensive. I went to buy eggs yesterday in my grocery store in a Publix here in Florida, and the regular eggs are $8 for a dozen of eggs. I mean, it's
Oh
just
my gosh, that's even more than in New York.
it's insane. $8 for
Regular
eggs.
eggs, not
It's
organic.
crazy.
Not
So
the
listen,
organic one.
people vote. All of us, listen, all of us are voters. And we vote with our checkbooks. We vote with our wallets. So we have to ask ourselves, coming into this election in November, are we better off now or were we better off 4 years ago?
Well,
We all know the truth. We all know the truth.
We do. Now, you were talking a minute ago on international affairs, Israel, per se. Don't the Democrats, or don't other people outside, even everybody should recognize that what's good for Israel actually, in essence, is good for us right here in America. Because as Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu said in his amazing speech, in my opinion, is
Great
that
speech.
a great speech, is that very, very simply and clear, this is not a clash of civilizations, which I have said on the radio many times, but it goes way beyond that. It is civilization, and that is the Judeo-Christian civilization, Democratic Republic, Judeo-Christian civilization, against barbarism. So even on an international stage, anything that's good for Israel, the final obliteration of the terrorists, dealing with Iran appropriately, it
Mhm.
comes down to the safety of the entire world. It seems to me that Israel is just that first stage, the beginning, the front, that fence, what that has to be penetrated in order to get to America, to get to us next.
No, I mean, Boomy, I think you make a great point. I mean, when Israel is fighting back against terrorists around the world, not only are they protecting their country and their own interests, but they're also protecting our interests as well. A strong Israel in the Middle East pushing back against all of the terrorist proxies that the Islamic Republic of Iran funds means that Americans not just are safer here at home, but Americans abroad and all of our bases are safer too. But when you look at what's happening right now, you have U.S. Army bases in Iraq, in Yemen, and Syria that have been constantly under attack from these terrorist proxies backed by the Islamic Republic of Iran for the last 4 years. So, we have Americans that are in harm's way overseas.
Yes.
And it all comes back to the fact that we have the weakest commander in chief in probably the history of my lifetime. And when it comes to foreign policy, America is not feared anymore. America is not really respected on the world stage. And when the Iranians are flush with cash, when the Chinese are flush with cash, when the Russians are flush with cash, and they see America being weak, guess what? They're going to exploit that weakness. That's what any country would do.
You
That's
always
what we
attack
would
the
do.
weaker.
Any
That's what
country would
bullies
do that.
They attack the weak one.
No, but America would do the same thing. America, under President Trump's leadership, we dominated. We obliterated Al Qaeda. We destroyed the Taliban. I mean, we led with American strength, and
Remember,
it's like
we led and we dominated, but we're on the side of good against evil. We
always. There's
right
nothing good about terrorists. There's nothing good about terrorists, and it's so interesting, right? It's like a controversial topic, to say out loud that we should kill all the terrorists. Like, I put up a post on Twitter a couple days ago where I said it's time to eliminate Hamas and Hezbollah. And for some reason, Twitter, or now X, whatever it's called, X said, we're flagging your tweet, Bryan, for violent speech. Like, violent speech? I'm talking about getting rid of terrorists. I'm not talking about killing innocent people. We should kill terrorists, okay? Or you know what? They're going to kill us. It's that simple.
You know what? The
You wrote about getting rid of violence, and you're being violent for that. That's just absurd. And by the way, when they're going and writing, let's say we're talking, people are going, oh, why is Israel? Why the politicians? Some of the politicians are being pointed out that they're talking about Israel. They don't seem to realize when they're going on the college campuses and they're writing about, free Palestine or whatever they're writing it on a New York state or on another state or on another city. They're vandalizing property that belongs to the city or the state. So there's so many different levels of it, and it really does need to be obliterated, because they're taking funds and the money that they have, like you said, that they have a lot of money. They're paying students to do these things. They don't even know what they're protesting.
They don't even know what revisionism means.
They don't even understand.
But
no, I don't.
Idiots.
Yeah, well, they are in a lot of ways, and I want to share with you guys and with the audience that there are things that members of Congress can and should be doing when we look at the anti-Semitism on college campuses. And a good example of that would be, when you're in Congress, you have the power of the purse. And you're constantly earmarking money to colleges, to universities, to research and development projects. I mean, Congress spends a lot of money. That's a whole nother conversation about we shouldn't be spending so much money. But the point is that we do spend a lot of money. So if I was in Congress next year, and I've already spoken to several other members of Congress, and they're on board with this.
When you will be in Congress
when you're
God willing, God willing, God willing, God willing, when I'm there next year, what we're going to do is we're going to line item any of these colleges and universities that have been allowing these protests to happen, and we're going to say, you know what, guys, actions have consequences. You let students run wild, burn your classrooms to the ground, attack Jewish students. So guess what? This year, you're not going to get $150 million in federal block grants that we gave you last year. You've got to do things like that to start sending a message, because we've got to get back to a country where actions have consequences, law and order. If you don't, we're just going to continue to be the laughing stock that we are right now. Do you think any Arab country, let me ask you this, do you think any Arab country would let a Jewish student burn an Arab flag on their college campus? Do you think
the
do you think they
student
would
would
do you
no
think they would
longer
let that
be
happen?
walking the streets anymore? But you know what's
Yeah,
crazy?
exactly.
What's really mind-boggling is that the safety of Israel is something that keeps the rest of the world safe. And these students, these pro-Palestinians, don't realize that, God forbid, if something happens to Israel, God forbid, the rest of the world will suffer, including those pro-Palestinian, including those students who are protesting and singing from the river to the sea.
Well, the useful idiots that are gays and lesbians, whatever they may be, and pardon me, Brian, I don't mean any offense when I say that, as you as a member of Congress, a future member of Congress, not supposed to say those things, but they are the ones that will be beheaded under the rule of Islamic law and stuff like that. They're the ones that are at greatest risk.
They would be the first. They would be thrown
Oh,
off
the
rooftops.
irony.
They would. The best, I don't know if you've seen the videos, but on some of these college campuses, someone will go up to someone and say, if you were openly gay in Iran, you would be thrown off a roof. How does that make you feel? And the people would look at them back and say, that's not true. That wouldn't happen. Listen, these are the same people that said that we were spreading lies and peddling Israeli propaganda about the atrocities that Hamas and Palestinian civilians committed on October 7th, right? I mean, you've seen those videos too, where they've denied that babies were burned alive. They denied that women were raped. Guess what, guys? I've seen the video. Okay, I've seen what happened. It's barbaric. It's disgusting, and I'm never going to be able to forget what I saw. And people would have denied that happened. So I mean, listen, this is what we're dealing with, whether it's on college campuses, and by the way, we're dealing with in Congress. I mean, you have your Rashida Tlaibs and your Ilhan Omars of the world, that people that are just, they're incapable of just being good people. And by the way, guys, it's been 3 days since Hezbollah killed 12 Israeli Druze children, and Kamala Harris hasn't said a damn word about it. Okay,
not a word.
Congressman Leib, Congressman to be Leib, I know you're under time constraints. Can I get one more question in?
Of course.
I have something that's troubling me, okay? Because I happen to like J.D. Vance as an individual. He goes the line with Trump, and I believe he would make a great vice president. But do you think he was a wise choice, in as much as Trump, I feel, probably should have taken somebody perhaps of color or a woman or somebody a little bit different,
more DEI.
And that might have more DEI, as Soya just said, that might have appealed to a wider audience, to a wider group of the population than just another ordinary Caucasian man.
Well, I mean, listen, I don't think President Trump was going to pick someone for DEI purposes. There were some really good candidates out there that checked a lot of boxes. But I think at the end of the day, J.D. Vance is a fantastic candidate. He's a young guy like myself. He very much believes in putting America first and standing with our allies around the world. He's been absolutely fantastic when it comes to supporting the state of Israel, when it comes to combating anti-Semitism in America. And I think that he will be a very good vice president. He seems to very much like President Trump quite a bit. And by the way, he has a great story. I mean, He has a story, a guy that came from nothing, had to deal with so much adversity, a mom that had serious substance abuse issues. I mean, he's overcome so much all throughout his life. And then he served in the Marines, and then he was a business owner, and now he's serving in the Senate. So I think he's a very impressive man. And I've yet to actually have a chance to meet him, to be honest, but I like him a lot.
A genuine rags to riches story. A beautiful,
and that connects with a lot of people, Boomy.
I hope to God that people.
It connects with a lot of people.
I hope so. And I hope to God that people will look not at his color or not at his gender. Rather, they will look at his substance, indeed, who he is and what his history is.
He makes a
Ladies
great
and
team. They
gentlemen,
make a great team.
ladies and
No,
gentlemen.
I think they make a great team, and honestly, as a millennial, I'm at the high end of the millennial. I guess we're 38, 39 is the very high end of millennials these days.
Yes.
But we also have to talk about the fact that, I mean, history is being made with JD Vance on the ticket. There's never been a millennial serving at the top of the ticket on either party. So I think it really serves to really mobilize a lot of young voters. I think JD Vance is really going to be able to connect with a lot of people in Middle America, the forgotten men and women of America that we know so much about. So listen, I think he's going to be a fantastic vice president. God willing, President Trump is going to be back in serving another 4 years. God willing,
Amen.
I and a lot of other amazing America First people will be serving in Congress alongside him.
Yes.
And let me just say to you guys, thank you for everything that you're doing in your community. And thank you to everyone out there. We all have to do our part. We all have to play our role and do what we can to help move this country forward, to help our neighbors, to help our community. And, some people decide to do crazy things like run for Congress. Some people, just do cuss it and do things to help locally in their community. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're doing something to help your friends, your family, your community, then you're contributing to this beautiful place that we call the United States of America.
Looking forward to
ladies and
good
gentlemen,
times
that's
ahead.
Bryan Leib. Again, he has been doing for America. He's been doing for the Jewish people of America, for all people across America, and all of his.
Continue doing.
And we wish you the best of
Very
luck
best.
because we need you and others
Thank
like
you, guys.
Bryan Leib, Congressman.
Thank you.
Bryan Leib.
You guys will come visit me in DC next year, God willing. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that invite.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
all the above, all the above. It's my honor. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thank you
Brian.
for joining us.
Now,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we disconnect, we're going to do our sponsor. We are sponsored tonight by Velocity Capital Group, as we have been sponsored in the past. Are you a small or medium-sized business owner? Do you need financing for your business for any reason, whether it be debt, inventory, payments to be made, import, export, goods, you name it? Have you been turned down by the bank? Do you need the money fast and don't even have time to go through the entire bank processing? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if that's you, if you fit into any of those categories, do not despair. I'm going to tell you where you can satisfy all of your business finance needs and fast. Call Jay at Velocity Capital Group. They can get you up to $1 million in 24 hours. You heard right. $1 million in 24 hours flat. And they will, again, 24 hours. Just call Velocity Capital Group at 833-824-3863. That's 833-824-3863. Or go to Velocity CG, as in Capital Group, velocitycg.com. And remember, when your bank says no, Velocity says yes. Now, Baila, that since we are a podcast and we're downwinding, do we still do our shout outs?
You can always do your shout out for sure. Why not?
Okay, so go ahead. Let Soya do the shout outs and then you'll do your shout outs.
Dove and Shani hiking.
As always, we look forward to their return back to the United States.
Yes,
They're doing
we
great
do.
things in Israel.
Yes, we do. And then, of course, all the local community boards, community board 12, 11, 10, 7, all the community boards. And then, of course, Assemblyman Lester Chang,
right,
who's doing truly amazing things. And of course,
for the entire community.
Another Assembly member, Eichenstein, and of course all his staff, Dove and the rest of the crew, Chaim, everyone over there. And of course, my favorite councilwoman, Bumi's favorite councilman, his buddy, his bestie, Kalman Yeager.
You left out your favorite councilwoman's name.
I did. Yeah. Councilwoman Vernikov. And then, of course, Inspector Richie Taylor, all the local.
I think Deputy Chief Richie Taylor. I have to
Deputy-
fix that on our list.
You really do, because I know.
Deputy Chief Richie Taylor.
No, inspector. He's inspector.
No, I think he was a bit promoted to Deputy Chief.
Okay. Yes, yes. And then, of course, 66 Precincts Community Liaison and Affairs Officer Sergeant Wing Chen, James Jamin, Detective Michael Ramau,
Your favorite detective.
2 captains of the 6-6, Ken Arati and Crispin Cheese. Of course, the entire NYPD, FDNY, DSNY, and every other NY agency. Thank you for everything that you do to making our communities safer and better, and improving our quality of life. And then, of course,
I think that covers
Who
it.
do you
Now,
want-
Baila, your shout outs for tonight.
My shout out is to the IDF and to the servicemen that are protecting our country.
They're
May
here.
God keep them safe and well,
Amen.
and
Amen.
bring them
Amen.
home to their
Amen.
families very
Okay,
soon.
and on
And
that
peace
note,
throughout the world.
amen. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another segment of Soya and Baila's World. We will see you again next week with further interesting subjects and updates on everything going on out there. Good night, everybody.
Good night.